Would you like to move your bill, Representative Agbaje?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to move House File 2148 to be laid over for possible inclusion.
Representative Agbaje, to your bill.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair and committee members. I'm here presenting today House File 2148. So as we've been hearing about in this committee, we are looking for varied solutions to our housing crisis. This bill presents an exciting opportunity to make an investment from the general fund that will pay long-term dividends for decades to come. One of the things that we continue to hear from housing developers is that they can't build affordable housing because it doesn't meet their bottom line. And from affordable housing developers, we hear that operating costs are overwhelming and making it hard to maintain their properties. We know our federally funded programs also have limitations. They're not always reliable, and they do sometimes hamper the ability of housing providers to adequately cover operating costs. So we need investments in sustainable and long-term solutions. And one area that we're beginning to explore is the role of our local jurisdictions, like cities and counties, in creating, owning, and maintaining housing for their communities. Known as locally owned housing, some counties in Minnesota are developing a more sustainable response to the lack of consistently and permanently affordable housing in their communities. These programs are marked by a couple of characteristics that set them apart from other publicly funded programs. One is that they are permanently affordable because that housing stays in the public trust for decades or longer. They're also self-sustaining because they usually use a set of revolving funds, and so that flexibility in that program allows counties to rent to a mix of income ranges for the purpose of meeting needs of various communities and to create a self-sustaining program that can keep up with ongoing operating costs. The higher rents and the market rate rents help subsidize and pay for the entirely locally owned program. This type of housing is a growing trend in Minnesota and in different parts of the country. For some counties, building locally owned housing complements the work of other developers by filling in the holes in the market where those groups can't or won't build. But that model, in order to realize its full potential and become self-sustaining, does need state investment. So overall, the bill before us today will create a revolving loan fund at MHFA, which is accessible to local municipalities like counties and cities. Those loans can then be used to develop and rehabilitate housing. And then the housing should also be owned by that municipality at a 75% ownership stake as in this current draft, and owned for at least 50 years. And then the bill also puts in requirements for the types of affordability levels in the bill, trying to ensure that counties are using the fund to create sustainable housing that is also mixed income. So in Minnesota, Olmsted and Washington counties have been leaders in building housing projects through a locally owned model along with other localities. And you'll hear from some of them as well as other testifiers that will better describe how this model has worked for them and the need to expand it. And with that, I'll turn it to my testifiers.
And Representative Agbaje, I think you do have an A1.
Oh, yes, I do have an A1 amendment. It includes the amount of money that we want to start with the seed fund, so to speak. And it specifies that the amount, that the appropriation, instead of a blank appropriation, turns it to $10 million.
Representative Agbaje moves the A1. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The A1 is adopted. Now we move to testifiers. And first we have Farhan Bedell, a renter in Dakota County. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. My name is Farhan Bedell. I'm a father of three. I live in Apple Valley. I'm a renter and the sole provider of my family. I grew up across the river here in Minneapolis. This is the city that I loved. As a youth, as a youngster, I volunteered at a park. But as I became an adult, I figured out that it was very difficult for me to rent in the city. That became more evident when I married in 2018. I quickly realized how difficult this was renting in the city. I had my first newborn and was looking for a two-bedroom apartment and working two jobs. I still could not afford a two-bedroom unit here in the city of Minneapolis. So those challenges were very difficult for me. I was very fortunate enough to have a friend who lived in Burnsville. And one day I was chatting with him. He told me about a program in Dakota County that's locally owned and affordable. And he said, you know what, Farhan, maybe you should apply. And thanks to my good friend here, I applied for this program. And the blessing of my second newborn also came with the blessing of an affordable two-bedroom apartment that I can afford. This was tremendously helpful for my family. I didn't want to leave the city of Minneapolis because that was home for me, but it was unfortunate I could not afford. So I had to do what was best for my family. And thankfully for this program that's locally owned, controlled housing, and affordable, it made the difference for us. Now I'm in my third year in this program. Beautiful community, very well connected. And I have to say, my message here to this governing body is that, if you support working families, if you support family members who are living paycheck to paycheck, this is the bill you should support. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have David Dunn with Olmsted County, Olmsted HRA. Do I see Mr. Dunn? If I don't see Mr. Dunn, then we'll go back to Melissa Taphorn. And there she is.
Good afternoon again, Chair Howard, Chair Igo, and committee members. I'm Melissa Taphorn, the Executive Director of the Washington County Community Development Agency, and I just want to say that I used to work at Dakota County CDA and probably built his home. So I'm here today in support of House File 2148, a bill that would significantly help in the creation of new permanently affordable housing choices for our communities. For many years, the Washington County Community Development Agency has invested in locally owned housing options for our county. The CDA owns and operates 990 locally controlled housing units in 10 different cities, in addition to the 160 federally subsidized housing units that we own. These rental communities are owned by the CDA and funded with a mix of funding sources, including local levy and county bonding dollars. They are not federal public housing units, but they belong to the public. We are looking for ways that we can add to the supply of our locally owned portfolio. And this is where the locally owned and controlled housing comes in. Currently, we can step in where the private market is unable or unwilling to finance a project. This could happen at a brownfield or a development or a city that just doesn't have a really robust demand where we can build something smaller than a private developer would be interested in. We don't compete with the private and affordable housing developers, but we complement them. The problem is that we lack access to consistent funding mechanisms to scale this program into a self-sustaining model. So this bill helps to create that funding mechanism and provides much needed immediate capital for counties ready, willing, and able to build more affordable housing, but for the lack of funds. 2, expands a model of the affordable housing that sustains itself by using market rate rents to subsidize the lower rents and the operating expenses, and keeps subsidized housing permanently affordable. With this modest state investment, we could unlock a powerful tool in supply and affordability. The locally owned housing program is specifically designed to be self-sustaining in terms of operating costs, using a mix of deeply affordable, and market rate rents. Thank you to Representative Abaje for bringing this forward and to the committee for considering this bill. Thank you.
Next, we have Lucas Franco with LaUna. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Co-Chair Howard, Co-Chair Igo, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Lucas Franco. I'm here on behalf of LaUna, Minnesota, and North Dakota. We represent more than 14,000 skilled construction workers who build and maintain Minnesota's infrastructure. I'm here today to express support for House File 2148, which would establish a locally controlled housing fund. This legislation will spark innovation in housing production and represents a positive step towards solving our state's deepening housing crisis. As you all know very well, Minnesota faces a substantial shortage of affordable housing. We've made progress addressing our housing needs, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. HF2148 adds another tool in our housing infrastructure toolkit. Publicly owned and locally controlled housing has a number of advantages over the tax credit subsidy model we primarily rely on. First, unlike traditional tax credit housing, publicly owned housing ensures that affordability never expires. That means no 30-year affordability limits, no speculative buyouts, just stable, accessible housing for working families like our members. Second, the revolving loan fund creates a self-sustaining public investment model where funds are repaid and reinvested into new projects. Third, it empowers local communities to build the housing that they need. Our members build Minnesota, but many cannot afford to live in the communities they serve. This bill ensures that cities and counties can directly finance housing for middle and lower income workers, keeping communities stable and ensuring that our workforce has secure, high-quality housing. Fourth and finally, this is an efficient use of scarce public dollars. Publicly led housing maximizes the use of public land, tax-exempt bonds, and public financing to create high-quality, mixed-income housing that can self-sustain without constant subsidies. This is a smart investment in innovation, like House File 1141, the Hibbs legislation, which we also strongly support. It leverages public investments to efficiently produce the housing that we so urgently need. I urge you to support and pass House File 2148. Thank you for your time and consideration of this legislation.
Thank you. That's the last person that signed up to testify. Is anyone from the public interested in testifying? If not, we can go to member discussion. I don't see folks signed up. Go to Chair Igo.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Representative Agbaje, for the bill. This is a comprehensive idea. And again, it's not a new idea. It's kind of a proven idea in red and blue states around the country that we've seen work. I guess my one question for the bill author would be, as we're trying to get back to more local control with a housing trust fund like this, is there appetite for us to maybe peel back some of the mandates and regulations to allow for more freedom in this market to be able to do exactly what the last testifier just said, allow those communities to choose and make those decisions a little better to adapt?
Representative Agbaje.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Igo. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole point of this is like the local entity is coming back in. The local entity is stepping up and providing that type of housing that the community members are saying that they need. So whether that's single-family homes or multifamily or townhomes or whatever that looks like for people, multi-generational housing, we want the community members who have a say in their government to be able to dictate then what type of housing it looks like.
Chair Igo.
Yep. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative Agbaje, for that. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you giving me the bill language a few weeks back. I did have the time to review it. Sorry we haven't had that conversation yet. But it is a very interesting idea, and I look forward to working on it. I just wish we didn't have the fiscal impact that it does, because everything's hard right now. But we can have those conversations moving forward together and see what we can do. So thank you.
And Representative Kozlowski.
All right, sorry I got on the list a little late. Thank you, Chair Howard and Representative, for bringing this bill forward. Personally, I'm really jazzed about this bill, and just the concept of social housing is something that many folks in my district and across the state, I've gone to a few different conferences where it's specifically talking about housing, and essentially what we're trying to do is guarantee everybody a safe, secure, affordable place to call home, and in a system where we're not only making sure that everybody has a place to lay their head at night and dream, we also are in this narrative kind of like worldview shift of how we think about housing as like not just as a basic necessity, not as a luxury. And I think this is a really important component into that of how we decommodify our housing. I think we talked in this committee, this biennium and last biennium about 95% of our housing is privatized. And so this is really about putting the power back into the hands of the people at that local level, which people want a say in how it's designed, where their communities, where they get to live and grow and invest in our communities. And so I just want to say thank you and look forward to continuing the conversations, obviously, as putting another request in on the pile. But this is really important, whether it's the housing infrastructure bonds, the FHPAP, and preventing homelessness, to really changing the trajectory of how we do housing in Minnesota and in this country. And I think getting something on the board and being able to start there and scale it up is exactly where we should be headed. So thank you.
I'll make a few comments before going to the bill author for final comments. I too am very jazzed by this bill. I really think we need in the housing space to be considering new and innovative ideas. And a few of the aspects of this that I just love, one is the self-sustaining aspect of it, that we're able to leverage resources that revolve and help us create more housing without kind of going back and back and back for more public investment. And two, this just really reimagines public housing in a way that I think is responsive to what communities want to see and what Minnesotans want to see built. And so it's an exciting proposal on many counts, and I'm grateful for you for carrying it. And I'll go to you for the final word, Representative Agbaje.
Sure. Thank you so much, chairs, and thank you, committee members. I really appreciate the conversation. I hope we can have many more. Again, this is just a step in a direction to allow our local entities to have a better say in what our housing looks like. I think the other really strong part about this bill, too, is it's really showcasing how people from different walks of life can live together, because a key part of this is that people from varied incomes will live near each other. And I think that's really important to building our social cohesion throughout. And so as conversations go, I understand that, we are in a very tough budget situation. But as I said earlier, I think it behooves us to look at where do we get the most impact for our investment, and that's where we should be thinking about where we put our funding. So thank you, Chair Howard, and thank you, committee members.
With that, House File 2148 as amended is laid over for possible inclusion.